What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Twitchy Tango. It's a breakdown. It's not like last Friday's video where I just kind of talked over it. There are certain things in the trailer that I noticed that I wanted to go over and look at through, my own kind of view. I am, of course, not the eagle eye, the expert of these sort of things, so I will link Susie the Spear Hunter's video somewhere on the screen as well as down below, as well as Residents of Evil and Biohazard Declassified, because these guys are much better than I have. These are just things I noticed and things I was intrigued about, from the set pieces to how the Ganados looked to the new voices we heard and what I think of them. I'm sure I missed so much more, but this, while is a very long video, it'll just help me figure out where I need to roll with it and what I want to see and what I discuss, what my thoughts are on certain things, what I like and what I don't like, which, truth be told, there really isn't a lot that I don't like about this video or this trailer. There's a lot to really divulge and divest, but it almost seems like they got a good idea of where they're heading with this remake, and that has me hopeful. There will be timestamps down below for you to pick certain point at some point in the video, and I'm gonna definitely try and put it up on the screen as well, like right here at some point too. So without further ado, we're gonna dive in, discuss this trailer. I am hyped. Resident Evil 4 needs a remake, but without further ado, let's get into it.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
So one of the things I noticed right out the gate was this trailer was it's not brown, dark, and murky like its original, which it's remastering, and Ashley's out in the open. My thought process when I'm looking at this is we're gonna play her at an early section. The village. I think we're gonna even play up until she gets captured and put in the church. I feel like that same concept's going to stay. Still, that's awesome. I'm very much for that kind of style and in a remake. I don't need a one for one remake. We still have the original in all its glory, but her outfit was very reminiscent of her 3.5 look, or well, what we call the proto Ashley look, and even Leon's vest feels very reminiscent of his 3.5 look. But it seems like they're going to have Ashley in a more central focus role instead of just play as her twice. It won't be the same escort mission that we've come to love and appreciate. Some people apparently just aren't good at taking care of Ashley. Be an absolute Chad like me and never tell her to hide and still screw up. Yeah, be me. Just saying. So it seems like we're going to have a more focused role on Ashley. I've heard rumors that Ada's going to have a more centralized role, and it won't just be they're supposedly combining separate ways and assignment Ada into a more focused campaign, which is awesome. I do think that's freaking great. I do have some concerns, but that's for another time. And it feels like the entire setup is vastly different than what we've originally had. You can tell just by the look of I'm assuming the outskirts of the village, that it's not dark, brown, and murky like we've been so used to in the original Resident Evil 4, which, if as soon as you get to the village, before you even enter the house, you notice a glaring thing. It's very dark, it's very brown, it's very murky. This is completely different in contrast to that. It almost seems like we kind of know the direction where they're going with. It almost seems like they're trying to reinvent Resident Evil 4 in a way that it was for its original choice, which was Resident Evil 3.5, which many considered, the Hookman version, due to the spectral ghost Hookman chasing Leon around. You're unable to kill him. So maybe they're going to definitely have a more horror focus as well as a supernatural focus, which Resident Evil 3.5 did have. So it makes me curious, what kind of remake are we getting? Again, I'm all for not getting a one-for-one remake because we still have that masterpiece that is Resident Evil 4. But even just looking over the trailer and some of the designs that we see, It does feel very reminiscent of Resident Evil 3.5, which you're seeing on the screen right here. So maybe there will not only just be more horror aspects as well as action aspects, but there will be some supernatural aspects to it. But it's hard to say with Capcom. I'm fairly certain we'll be getting a new trailer at Summer Games Fest, probably even gameplay, maybe even a beta. We kind of know how Capcom loves doing betas now, and there's really a lot that they can go forward with this. I'm honestly very hopeful. Just seeing that trailer, seeing Ashley out and about, has me excited that this just won't be the whole same song and dance that we've been so used to for all this time with the countless and countless upon countless ports of RE4. And just look at the contrast. The village looks very brown, looks very murky. It's very different than the trailer and what it looks like. It looks very different. And I feel like that's going to be a great thing going forward. But kindly just tell me what you think about it. What do you think of their choices with how the trailer looks, how the set pieces look? And that's where we'll end this segment and we'll go into the next one. If you've played Resident Evil 4 as much as everybody and their mama has, then you're well aware of the enemies, the Ganados, not including the El Gigantes, the dogs, and the myriad of Las Plagas that exist for you to face. But the main enemies, the bread and butter of Resident Evil, the Ganados, have never truly been scary. I think the only scary enemies I've ever really, actually remotely been afraid of were like the Regenerators. And after you got used to how they act and operate, it was easy cakewalk. But with this remake, it gives the Ganados a lot more realism, a lot more reasons to be afraid of them. Due to the limitations of the consoles and the graphics at the time in video games, it just wasn't possible to really convey what we were dealing with. The enemies and how there's no one really there anymore, that it's just a flesh suit, a meat suit with a parasite burrowing into the body, controlling everyone's movements, allowing them very minimal things like talking and communicating. But the big thing I notice about these Ganados is how unkept and crazy looking they are. Thanks to the RE engine, we're able to see how utterly insane, how unkept they are, how there's not really anyone there anymore. Whether it's the messed up hair, the bloodshot eyes, the empty eyes, really. Nothing's there, nothing's there. And it almost looks like they could be a terrifying enemy to face. Avalanche Jared has said that a lot. Ganados, Las Plagas, they're not terrifying, but I do feel that these Las Plagas, these Illuminados, the Ganados could honestly be very terrifying in this remake due to the fidelity of the graphics and how they look. I'm going to zoom in right here on this clip to kind of show you where it looks like the Las Plagas is getting ready to tear out of the robe-wearing Ganados, and that's kind of nuts. But if you just see how unreal they look, how terrifying they could be, I do think the Ganados will be up there with like the zombies of RE2 and RE3. I do feel like because they'll look so human that it'll feel generally terrifying to go against them as they're running for you, running at you, running against you, which honestly makes me kind of hopeful for a horde-esque type ordeal like Resident Evil 2 Remake had. Resident Evil 2 Remake had this thing where you could have a multitude of zombies rushing at you at once and could get overwhelmed. Ganados in RE4, whether it's in the village or the castle or the military compound, could overrun you and take you out. So I'm hoping they sort of keep that mindset with, how the Ganados worked in RE4 and amplify it with like a horde mode like RE2 Remake. But that's just kind of me. That's what I'm hopeful for. I think the Ganados in RE4 Remake could definitely be terrifying. I feel like they're going to be something we talk about for a while. Much like how RE2 Remake zombies look utterly terrifying just to look at and go against, and how sporadic their movements were. I do feel like these Ganados will be a terrifying foe to face, whether it's the villagers, whether it's the monks, whether it's the military Ganados, or whatever else they're going to throw in to change it up. But that's kind of just where I feel about it, honestly, with Ganados. Let me hear what you think. Do you think these Ganados look terrifying? Do you think that they'll be a little more realistic, will put more fear into you? Let me know down below, and that will lead us into our next one. A big thing about RE4 is its set design, its set pieces, the locations you travel, which is, I think, pretty much broken up into three sections. And it seems almost like they've captured it to a T. Just look at the village from the first section. It almost looks to a T, an exact replica of the RE4 village that we come across. There will obviously be a lot more, probably a lot of striking similarities, but as a one for one design, it looks like it's almost to a T the exact same thing. Does that mean the items will be placed in the same place? No, because I think you need to mix it up a bit to place things in different locations. Maybe not put the shotgun in the house. Maybe put it in another location. When the one thing I did notice, and the one thing that utterly terrifies me, is there's no lighthouse to electric boogaloo out when you're getting bombarded by the Ganados and Dr. Salvatore. Good old chainsaw man. I've only died to you one or two times, and just the other time was just to be silly. But I do hope with this recreation of well-known locations, whether it's the village, the castle, or the island, if we even go to an island, I'm very much hopeful and looking forward to how they recreate it. Just looking at this set piece, what can obviously surmise is the castle. There's a robe wearing Ganados sitting there at the fire. Like, looking at that, look at that set design. Look at that. When you compare it to RE4, it almost looks like a one for one recreation. Again, if locations can get recreated one for one and you change up the story and make this story even better, I'm all for it. But look at that. Look at that beauty. Look at that splendor. Don't you just love it, folks? It almost looks like Capcom really cares. And I don't know which studio is working on this RE4 remake, but it does have me quite hopeful and excited for it going forward. So it looks good, guys. I think Capcom really wants this to succeed, and they know it'll make a lot of money. But it has to actually be good to begin with, because bells and whistles are nice, but let's see that beautiful gameplay. And I'm assuming this is the redone church. So I do have a theory that we're going to play as Ashley in a early section of going into the village, and she'll get captured and put in the church. But that's kind of hearsay and what I think. But what do you guys think? What do you think? I do think if they capture the essence of the original locations in this new engine and it's well enough, I think people will absolutely love it and appreciate it. But on the other hand, if they don't, people will feel like Capcom just doesn't truly care about remakes, like how Capcom just wanted to get RE3 out of the way and not give it the love that they needed. But I think that has a lot to do with the studios behind it all. But that's just kind of how I think and process it. And I don't know if they can really capture that first moment where Leon walks into the house. Clearly, it's a different look, it's a different design. I just don't know if they're going to be able to lightning in a bottle twice. You understand? I think the build-up's going to be, we're going to expect it, but I think if they don't do something to change it up, then, what's the point of it, man? Like, you can recreate all these locations and set pieces, but if you're not doing something to make us expect the unexpected, what's the point of it all? I am hopeful. I am excited. I think the design choices, how the locations look from what we've seen is great. Again, we'll probably see more at Summer Games Fest, even possibly get a demo. I'm kind of hopeful for that demo, just saying. But what do you guys generally think of it? I do like that we're going to be doing El Lago. I think that's great. I do think that going to that part, even as tedious and miserable and boring as it is, I do think it's awesome. It's probably one of my least favorite spots of the game, so hopefully with that recreation of it, it'll be a lot smoother, a lot easier to deal with. That button pressing, man, it just messed me up. It just messed me up. But that's kind of how I feel about it. Let me hear your thoughts. What do you think of the recreations of the locales and all that? Do you like it? Are you hesitant about it? Let me know down below. And now we'll dive into the next segment. So we all love our iconic VAs, whether you're a fan of Matthew Mercer's older iteration of Leon or Paul did, may he rest in peace, his all in all great Leon, or you love Paul Mercier's take on the seasoned Leon. It sucks when Capcom can't come to an agreement with VAs coming back. It's grateful that we've gotten Nick and Stephanie, but Jolene Anderson, who voiced Ada Wong in RE2 Remake, was not asked to come back. And I feel like that's a miss because the chemistry her and Nick had was just so satisfying to watch. And it sucks, but it also maybe leaves the door open for veterans of Leon to come back. Even though I thought Jolene's take on Ada was refreshing, to say the least. Could that mean that Sally Cahill, I think I'm saying her name wrong, who voiced Ada in RE4 is coming back to voice her? Or does that mean the most prominent voice actor for Ada, other than the Japanese VA, Courtney Taylor, is coming back? I don't know. But I do hate that sometimes that happens, whether it's because of unions that Capcom doesn't work with, which I think that has a lot to do with why Roger Craig Smith doesn't, and possibly Matthew Mercer. And then people like Paul Mercier don't want to come back because he was very reluctant to come back to do the Dark Side Chronicles voices for Leon. So, I mean, it's really hard to say what goes on. I think it's a missed opportunity for Capcom. So I can only hope that maybe they brought back one of the veteran voice actors for Ada. I just don't know. It's anyone's guess, really, until we hear, which I'm hoping, whether it's this week or next week, I can't remember when Summer Games Fest starts, that we get to hear it. But that kind of leads me into the new voices that we heard. And you know where I'm going with this one. You already know Luis Serra. He's got his red 9. He's looking all spiffy and cowboy-like. And I kind of wanted to do sort of a side-by-side comparison of Luis's original voice as well as his new voice and kind of get a little idea where we're heading with this.
Guess you, me, picked the wrong spot to vacation, eh?
Okay, that sounds great. It's almost like they're keeping the same tone with Luis. Let's just hope Leon doesn't butcher his name again. And I dig it. He's sarcastic. He's witty. He's got good comebacks. So we're going to do a comparison of his original voice.
A little rough, don't you think?
So it feels like, even though this is going to be a more serious version, they're at least keeping Luis his grounded self, which Luis is probably one of my favorite things about RE4, because his constant banter with Leon and just being sneaky, he's pretty good about, keeping us grounded. Leon's a superhero. He's an agent of the president, but Luis was just a regular guy. Well, he was a cop that got in too deep and was trying to help Leon and Ashley, and it cost him his life. So I can only hope his death is very different. Because if it's the same death, it's just going to not catch us off guard. So I feel like we'll also have better conversations between Leon and Luis. So I'm very hopeful for Luis's character. I'm hoping he's got more character going for him. He already sounds like RE4 Luis, and I think that's what we can be hopeful for. But that kind of leads me into my next one, which is Lord Sadler. And I've got to say, I'm committing heresy, but I actually prefer his voice over the original. And I'll give a good explanation of why. But I think if we just do a little side-by-side comparison of the two, you might see my way of thinking. Possibly, maybe. Who knows? But that's really up for you to decide on what you think. So let's hear it.
You will receive our most sacred body. It begins now.
So I dig it. I think he sounds more menacing and threatening as the cult leader of Los Illuminados. And I think that's what they're going for this time around. You know, original RE4 was very campy, super villainy, but just a comparison of how he sounds, let's listen to his old one.
Soon, you will become unable to resist this intoxicating power.
I very much dig his new iteration. I dig the new Luis. At least they're keeping his same character. I'm sure they'll add more to him to add variety. But this guy, I'll make an exception. Lord Sadler was very comic booky villainy. He sounded very campy. Again, it's Resident Evil 4, but with a more serious tone. I guess I got to take a better approach to it? Question mark. So they got to make him sound more menacing and terrifying. You know, he's leader of a very much doomsday apocalypse death cult. So you kind of got to keep the ball rolling and make him fit to the tone instead of being very campy, humorous sort of thing. And that kind of leads me into my next one, the boy of the hour who became a man who works for the president, Leon Scott Kennedy. Regardless how you feel about certain voice actors, I think Paul did. We miss dearly. He captured Leon. But if there's a close second who really encapsulates Leon Scott Kennedy, it's Nick. And I'm so thankful they've been consistent with keeping him. Each Leon has had their own take on Leon, whether it's Matthew Mercer's very serious and more seen some shit Leon, whether it's Paul Mercier being the superhero cop that we all know and love, to Paula did really capturing rookie Leon on his first day. May he rest in peace. But Nick, I didn't like him at first because I was so hung up on Matt. But Nick captures Leon. And we'll get to see this Leon transition from this rookie cop in Raccoon City to who he becomes at the end of RE4. And it'll feel personal because we have the same voice actor. We have the same mocap guy, which is Leon Scott Kennedy. Nick, I'm sorry if I butcher your name. Apostestados. I think I'm butchering it. But you can sort of see where I'm going with this. This really captures him. This captures his essence. And it sucks that we're not going to have Jolene to bounce off with chemistry to Nick's Leon. But at least we'll get to see this Leon with Nick's energy try to process what he experienced in Raccoon City and becoming the man we all know and love. But that's kind of where I'm going to end this segment, and I'm going to round it off with my closing thoughts and what I think about it, what my thoughts are on the entirety of the remake and the trailer. But I do hope you enjoyed this video, so we're going to dive into that right about meow. When you're going to remake a game like Resident Evil 4, that's iconic. It's considered one of the greatest games of all time. It changed game development forever, bringing third-person perspective to a reality. Character models that were so absurd and insanely realistic for its time. It's very hard to remake that near perfect to the same extent. Do you do a one-for-one recreation or try to change things up, which seems like they're changing things up? It'll still anger fans, it'll still upset fans, but it will bring in a new era of fans. See, it's very hard to do something with something as massive as Resident Evil 4 was. It literally, out of its development, spawned Parasite Eve and Devil May Cry, as well as pushed game development, game design forward insanely well. With how self-aware, how hilarious RE4 was, and the remakes taking a more serious tone, how do you do that again? How do you keep some of the elements? Seems like they're keeping Luis, his wisecrack and smart mouth and self. How do you add more story to certain elements like Krauser and Leon? How do you make Ashley feel more significant? Things like that. It's a lot to really focus and take on and recreate because Resident Evil 4 is a lot of people's first Resident Evil game. It means a lot to a lot of people. So, how do you redefine something that redefined gaming? How do you make this remake be something that's talked about for years, hopefully good? I'll kind of leave that up for you to decide. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on this remake? I know a lot of people want Code Veronica remake, but this could pave the way for a Code Veronica remake. Let me know what you think of the choices that you've seen in the trailer. What do you think of the changes that you're already seeing? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you want a one for one remake of Resident Evil 4? Let me know these things down below. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment your thoughts, subscribe, turn the notification bell on if you're feeling generous, and follow me on all social medias, which they will be down below. But that's it. That's the video. I love you all. I'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy.